More live on Facebook. Oh, fabulous.
Before anyone clicks off, we are still going here. Susan's just trying to connect it to Facebook, so because we are recording.
Yeah, just bear with me a wee second. It's actually just kicked me right out of everything. Hold on, I'll see if I can. No, it's not letting me. It's kicked me right out.
Bugger.
And yet today it was absolutely fine. So when I did live on Facebook.
Nazca, trying to sing. Zippity doo dah, zippity
The last 5 days I worked. Share to your group. I think I might be waiting now.
Right.
We need to practice a bit.
Yeah.
Next time.
A lot, maybe.
This should be just a small tweak somewhere.
It's preparing to live stream now.
Fabulous.
Yes. And
we are live
on Facebook. Wow.
That's us. We are live.
Let's check on the app.
This builds up the pressure because millions of people will see that.
Millions.
It's just in the group.
Millions.
There we go.
That's the biggest number that I can write. That's why.
So if I now go back to.
There we go. That's the biggest number that I can write.
It's working.
It's working.
Okay, we're all good. So for anyone watching over on Facebook, either now or at a later stage, welcome to the September Gratitude, Inspiration and Happiness Workshop, which we have broken new ground today by being able to live stream. This has been... we've been trying to get this to go for I don't know how many months, and finally today we cracked it. So we're celebrating that particular little win. So tonight's workshop, we're going to talk about habits, and Anna's going to lead the way, followed by Nasco, followed by Robin, and then I'll close up. And also a lovely warm welcome to Kellyanne, who's joining us at the moment as well. So without further ado, Anna, are you ready to kick us off?
I am, I think I am. So I've put a little bit something together. So I am reading from the screen. So sorry if it seems a little bit tilted, but I'm just going to go with it. So yeah, our topic, this workshop is all about habits. And habits can be one of two things. Habits can be the loose clothing worn by a nun or a monk. But what we are talking about today is the behavior of a habit. A habit can be a good or a bad, and even neutral. It's learned repetitive behavior that is hard to give up should you so desire. I, like you, have so many habits, some bad, some good, some I have conquered and no longer have, some I am even proud of, and some I have no idea about, but the onlookers would recognize as a habit. So what is a habit? And just for disclaimer's sake, this is purely my interpretation. There is no scientific facts surrounding this. I haven't done any research or anything. This is just purely from what I I can't say the word, that I see as a habit is. A habit is a learned behavior. It can be an action, a thought, or a feeling that occurs involuntary, which you may or may not be aware of, but feels almost impossible to give up when you are made conscious of it. A habit is an action that has been compounded over a period of time and has made you, me, and the gatepost who we are today. As Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life and you will call it fate. We should try to be more aware of our habits. Otherwise, we will continually be repeating the same actions unconsciously, and they will direct our lives. Now, we all know what bad habits are. Talking with your mouth full, saying the same word repetitively, swearing a lot, nail biting, procrastination, sucking your thumb, being continuously late, cracking your joints, and even engaging in negative self-talk. Most of these have been formed from insecurities, worries, and stress, and quite likely started to take place as a child. These habits help momentarily to relieve tension, but can often indicate that there is actually a deeper problem. Okay, so I am going to be totally open and honest here and a bit vulnerable. A habit which I struggled with to combat was sucking my thumb from a young child, something I developed from when I was in the womb. I saw this as a negative habit, even though it harmed nobody. It gave me comfort and for some time was socially acceptable. However, when I got to secondary school, it became an awkward quirk which turned into embarrassment. It was a habit I needed to conquer, but it wasn't easy and it took time. The difference between a habit and addiction, like what is that? Because habit and addictions are so similar. There's a fine line between them. A habit, but one thing that I have observed is that addiction is more likely to be an abuse of a substance or an object, for example, being addicted to narcotics, alcohol, shoes, cigarettes, fast cars, pornography, gambling, even your phone. None are necessarily bad until they become an addiction that consumes you. One that does not just have an impact on you, but on others around you. You do not often say I'm addicted to talking to myself negatively. However, you may refer to it as a bad habit of mine. An addict doesn't say, I can't give up the drugs, it's just a bad habit. The word habit almost seems like a softer term for an addiction, one that may be easier to control or give up. It may be a term that one may use when denying an addiction. Habits can also be good. They are often differentiated between good and bad habits. Like everything, a habit has a polar opposite. But is there such a thing as a neutral habit? The answer is yes. Habits can be neutral, having neither helpful nor harmful effects. Examples of neutral habits is taking the same route to work every day or eating the same breakfast cereal every morning. So what can we do to combat the bad habits and escalate the good ones? One way is to focus on the positive habits, the ones that serve you. For example, if you are focusing on your health, start including a small daily ritual into your daily routine. It doesn't have to be big. For example, if you want to get fitter, start by putting your trainers at the front door before you go to bed. Then put on your trainers. Then leave the house for a 10-minute walk. Then increase it to a 30-minute run. Then incorporate running before you know it. You'll be running marathons and you'll be feeling great. Maybe. Marathons aren't for everyone. For something to become a good habit, you need to enjoy doing it. Why is it easy to take on a bad habit and harder to maintain good ones? Or is it? Bad habits are formed as it's easy and provides a level of fleeting comfort. It feels momentarily good. So you do it over and over again until it becomes an unconscious or automatic habit, like biting your nails or twiddling your hair while scrolling through social media. In reality, bad habits are a mask and a distraction for something else. Compounded bad habits generally have a negative effect. The habit of eating a delicious jam donut at every coffee break will lead to weight gain. The habit of biting your nails will lead to sore cuticles and social distancing, maybe even alienation. And the habit of negative self-talk will only make you feel bad, which can lead to anxiety and depression. I try to introduce a lot of habits, a lot of good habits, but quite frequently fail. But I keep on trying until one day they will stick. These habits like drinking more water, eating healthily, exercising daily, reading more, meditating, keeping the house tidy and being organized, planning, and taking that time to breathe. I've got into a really bad habit of making myself a cup of tea and a snack, and then before I've even left the kitchen, I have to take a bite. I have to consciously be aware of it in order for me not to do it. I've got this incredible quote by Warren Buffett. This quote is, "Bad habits are like chains that are too light to feel until they are too heavy to carry." Healthy habits are learned in the same way as unhealthy ones, through practice and repetition. So if we can make a small change every day and compound the action, then one day it will become part of our identity. Success doesn't happen overnight. It takes a series of small actions, not just one, to make a difference to form a habit. I've got this analogy too, because I liken a habit to an oil painting. You start with one brushstroke, then another and another. You build layer after layer with consistent change. One day you will have a picture that everyone admires, but until then, no one can see the finished result, the end game, and will think you've gone bonkers. They can't see the result whilst it is being compounded. Then one day, these tiny habits you have compounded become who you are, your identity. If you're overweight, one healthy meal does not change how you look. One 5-kilometer run or walk doesn't make you feel fitter, but over time, repeating the same action will change who you are. Success is all about tiny habits, but to get to those tiny habits, you need to be repetitive. Sometimes uncomfortable actions like the layering of paint before others, including yourselves, seeing the benefit of it. Good habits are formed by hard work, by being conscious to reach an end goal. It's not always easy, but the result is so worth it. So my conclusion, we are all creatures of habit. We have good ones and bad ones. Let's focus on compounding the small daily changes to implementing them into our lives for success in all areas of health, wealth, social, careers, environment, family, mindset, communication, speech, learning, self-development, and so much more. If you add more good habits to your existence, the bad ones will lessen, even disappear entirely. Let's outweigh those habit scales with depositing and focusing on more of the positive habits. Just watch the scales tips and how it will change your life. That's it. Thank you very much.
That was fantastic, Anna. Action
That was
packed.
awesome.
Brilliant. Absolutely
Yeah, it
brilliant.
was brilliant. Thanks, Anna.
Amazing. Now you can drink.
That's why I wanted to go first, Nasco.
I was not sure if it was a habit for you first to drink and then to talk, but now I just realized.
Is it an addiction or a habit? I'm not sure.
Yes, exactly. Wow, Anna, I think you said it all. I mean, what else can we say?
Thank you.
Well, okay. I'm number two. Well, that's the challenge with number two, that maybe number one has already said everything. And then number two needs to adapt, you know. And then number three, I just even don't want to think about Robin Lee and, and Susan. Well, while you were talking, I recognized so many points that I wanted to mention, and I'm going to slightly adjust my presentation, right? I like to be more visual, so I'm going to present my screen, and then I would maybe snip, snap, and skip those sections that you mentioned. Even though, if you allow me to share with you guys, I believe that people don't normally remember everything when it is said. The spiral way of learning in human brain is that it needs repetition, like a habit, in order to sink in. So at some point, I might repeat things that you have said with the intention really about to learn and to share rather than to preach and patronize. So I'm sharing my screen. I hope you can quickly see it, and then I will glide over it in the time that Susan gave me. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm not going to go through the whole presentation. It's a presentation which is much broader than just 10-15 minutes, but I will just maybe glance over it, and I hope that one day we might talk about this topic again, because I find it very, very important. Why it is important? Because actually, when I started digging into habits, I found myself that I didn't know what it is. I just felt that I'm quite addicted to certain things. I am very much driven by certain things, but I was not aware of what it is. So I think around my puberty, I started, getting acquainted with some scientific approaches regarding habits. So today I took the liberty to invite two of my mentors on the screen. So one of them is the very first book that I read on personal development. This is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. which I'm going to be referring to here. And that was the book that actually also formed me as a professional individual, because joining the corporate world, it helped me a lot. So I'm going to present this book today as a form of showing you what, for me, mega habits are, because they could be applicable to every person. So they have been distilled to be 7 habits of highly effective people, and they can be applied to every individual. This is what I believe in. That's why I call them mega habits. The first habit is, for example, be proactive. And within this habit, you can find mini habits that can actually be personalized by person, and then you can take different wisdom out of it. But I will come to that. My second mentor is the guy called James Clear, and the book Atomic Habits. Now, that one taught me a little bit more about how to learn and unlearn habits. So the first book was more or less about what kind of habits there are and which ones are effective for a general group of people. Well, the second book is more or less about the mechanics behind forming a habit or unlearning a habit. And I would like to finish this presentation, or at least my part, with sharing with you one habit that I'm struggling with and a challenge for me. So without further ado, very quickly, Anna already mentioned what a habit is in terms of definition. Well, I'm going to share maybe only my perspective here as well, without going to the dictionary. So for me, a habit is an activity that we as individuals perform on a regular basis. It affects our well-being. It could be negative, positive, neutral. And as already Anna mentioned, the way we form habits is the same way we form thoughts, right? The mind doesn't filter bad or good thoughts. It is just the soil for thoughts and the fruits for those thoughts. The same is for the habits. What you nurture, this is what you reap. Okay, so starting with the first teacher that I had, the 7 habits of highly effective people, the thing that actually struck me a little bit about forming those repetitive actions is that when you look at the human being, actually you realize that every human being goes through a certain maturity line, certain process of growth. And I'm not talking about years here. As you can see on this diagram, there are no years mentioned. It's more or less maturity, right? I mean, you could be 50 years old and still behave like a teenager, and vice versa. You might have a very wise and very kind of mindful teenager who is already pretty much aware of their existence. So the author looks at the maturity line of developing and being effective as a human being in 3 areas: dependence, independence, and interdependence. Now, and then he blends the topic of habits. So the first phase, dependence, is all about you. So I depend on you. All my faults are because of you. Whatever happens to me is because of you. I'm dependent on you. There is no ownership. So at that time, in order to, and of course, this is something that I'm talking also to my kids, like how can we cross that bridge here of you are responsible for everything that happens to me. And from this moment on, the author presents 3 habits that the person can develop in order to cross that bridge and come from dependent to independent. And independent is a stage of maturity where a person becomes aware of who they are and they take ownership of what is happening around them. So it's not the circumstances to blame, but it's more or less our response to them. Then from this moment on, the habits related to I and my ownership of the things that are happening to me starts to be formed. So these are the habits 4, 5, and 6. To the point when it comes to the point of interdependence, when we talk about not you, not I, but we talk about we. So what is it that we can do? These habits, they have names. Those names are actually pictured here in this diagram. So you see that the first 3 habits, the habit of being proactive and aware, the habit of beginning with the end in mind, therefore having a vision, and put first things first, like prioritizing and planning, these are the ones that he mentions to be the habits to be mastered as a private victory. This is where you conquer the blame mindset and you start accepting responsibilities of things. Now, unfortunately, for this presentation here, we would not have time to dive into each one of those. I can share this presentation some other time, but I think most of these habits, they speak by just reading the title. And of course, the most important is the one to be proactive, not reactive. Right? I mean, this is where the awareness starts kicking in. Now, most of us here on the screen already recognize that this is something that has been a part of our life before we became aware of where we are and who we are. Once we pass this stage, then the other habits are important of, start having a vision and therefore a sort of a direction in life. I'm not going to use the word purpose, but this is where I'm going. And the third habit is really prioritizing things which are important, urgent, not so important, and very important. Right? This is where you would actually start focusing here. Once you cross the bridge of these three habits, then you move into the area of independence, where actually you're moving into the area of understanding the other people around you. So you're moving into, bridging the gap between independence and interdependence. So this is the collaboration with other individuals. The first one in this would be think win-win, where always when you look at something for yourself, you also look at how others can benefit from it. A good approach here would be really to review and talk about your own drive in life and your own gifts and how you can share them with others. Because at the end, we're all connected, right? Habit number 5 is seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is an important one for a leader, because only when you understand, you can give advice. Many people think that leaders and consultants are the ones that preach constantly and talk about things. Well, it is actually the opposite. You cannot give a prescription without knowing what the causes and the rationale behind is, right? So this habit for me was one of the most important ones, where I tried to be much more of an active listener rather than a passive consultant who constantly speaks and talks. And this was for me one of the hardest habits to master, because you always want to share what you know, but actually by doing this, you'll learn nothing, right? I mean, you can't really tell yourself something that you don't know, even though there are some people who talk things that they don't understand. But the point here is first seek to hear, to understand, and then to be understood. Habit number 6 is talking about the ultimate collaboration with others. So this is where you realize that 1 + 1 is not 2, it's much more. And this is where you realize that combining gifts from different mindsets, from different people through mastermind, through collaborations like this, you achieve much bigger results, right? And habit number 7 actually embraces everything. This is when you sharpen the saw, when you focus, when you understand how to make a balance of all the things that you know, because then you realize how much a habit can be formed out of lack of diligence, lack of discipline. These are the habits that have been formed as bad habits because they just grew up as bad habits. So habit number 7, sharpening the saw, is all about balance. And this is where, the enlightened beings are actually more or less aiming to find the balance. And this is, of course, the balance in the mind, balance in the spirit, balance in the body, social balance, etc. So my recommendation would be, for those of you who are interested in knowing a bit more about these mega habits, just go and grab this book. I had the privilege of receiving the book with a signature of the author, who passed away a couple of years ago, but this was for me my first teacher in self-development. I'm jumping directly to the second book and the second teacher. This is The Atomic Habits. A beautiful book, really. For me, it taught me more about the mechanics of how you build or break negative habits. because once you get the awareness and you have this prescription of how to do things, then it is much easier to deal with them. Actually, in essence, in this picture, you are seeing the habit loop. So how is habit formed on the first place, subconsciously or consciously? So these are the 4 steps. Like there is a cue, there is a trigger or a teaser, and there is a craving that itches you to do something. There is a response or result, and there is a reward of it. So at the end, of course, all of these habits, we perform them because there is a reward and we are happy with it. Whether this is good for our well-being or not, this is another topic, right? And I already spoke quite a lot about this. And on this picture here, you can see actually the way to walk over this habit loop and build a good habit. So if you want to actually create and nurture a good habit, you first to come to the awareness to make it obvious. You need to see the big picture and understand why is this good for you. After that, you make it attractive. So you award yourself or you reward yourself every time when you actually fulfill the step of starting building this habit. You need to make it easy, therefore removing all the obstacles around. Therefore, for you, it is always important to have the big picture in mind. Remember the second habit before, always start with the end in mind. So what is it that I want to achieve? And I'm going to remove all the obstacles around so that I can fully create this without blaming others for my lack of success. And at the end, of course, it should be a gratification experience. It should be satisfying. Now, if you use this approach, you can use the inverse approach to start breaking the bad habits. I know that I'm speeding up quite a lot here, but if you think about how you build something with care, now make it very hard for those things that you have already built and you want to get rid of. So instead of making it obvious, make it invisible. So if you have cookies around and you always try to reach out for the cookie, just hide them, make them invisible. I love chips. And that's why I ask my wife never to buy chips anymore. I'm making it invisible. Make it unattractive. Yeah, just make sure that you focus on that thing because you understand the result of it, right? It all comes with awareness. Make it hard. So put the cookies on the top drawer so you cannot reach it, or the kids cannot reach it, and make it unsatisfying. Create a measure that allows you to figure out how much it works against your well-being, right? That's why my definition of a habit was that it is something that we repeatedly do. It affects our well-being. I didn't say positively or negatively. That was the open door. That if you see that it affects you negatively, then make it unsatisfying by measuring it one way or another. Right? If you drink too much coffee, then maybe you just make a tick every time when you drink the coffee, and then you see if this is something that you can live with or not. I think what Anna also mentioned is that, and I wanted to summarize it here for you, is that habits, they're a manifestation, a real manifestation of a compounding, right? Because this is something that we repeatedly do every day. And you can decide to do it every day or every minute, depending on how much you want to achieve that. Habits can be learned and unlearned. Habits can be stacked. And that was one revelation that I really found extremely useful, is that once you have an established habit and you want to go for another habit, you can stack them by saying, okay, if I don't drink coffee, if I can drink a glass of water, and then I can watch maybe 15 minutes of social media because I deserve it. Right? So you stack habits one above another by rewarding yourself. Now, going into the mindset part, habits define us. What we are is actually a consequence of our habits. Anna also mentioned this one. And because they are behavioral, actually we can control them. We can choose to control and create them. Okay, guys, and before we finish, I really wanted to share with you the habit that I'm struggling most. So please allow me another 5 minutes. Okay, I will start with this. For the last couple of years, I've tried to find the meaning of my life. I delved, I studied, I researched, I went to trainings, I spoke with people. I just wanted to understand, why am I on earth? What is my purpose? What is my calling? Along the way, I realized that one of the things that I needed to fight and the giant that I needed to slay is circumstances. So everybody knows circumstances, they don't define us. So we are beyond the victimhood mentality. What defines us is our response to the circumstances. And here is the relationship with the purpose. Every day when I wake up, I want to wake up with the clear conscience that whatever I do in this day, it will be purposeful. It should have a meaning. Even if I decide to rest, it should have a meaning. So whatever happens around us, I should be able to respond. And I'm making a pause here because this is exactly what I'm struggling with. My biggest issue here is the pause. How can I fulfill my purpose if I don't have the time to think about the purpose and therefore form the habit to exercise my purpose, right? If I want to have my purpose, I want to reach somehow to it, but I don't have time to think about it because I'm always reactive. Remember the first habit from Stephen Covey, be proactive. So I need to stop being reactive. And the first thing that I could do is to pause and think. And this is exactly where you take this deep breath to remind yourself and maybe tell yourself, remember who you are, what you stand for. Now, another breath. Find your center. Act with integrity. So if there is a circumstance and you find the urge, the negative habit to react because someone just pinched you, someone irritated you, well, try to exercise and build this habit of pause. Because at the end, through the maturity levels, you realize that you need to take yourself on and serve others, and mostly also yourself, to the point where you reach synergy and you come to that point where 1 + 1 is 1,000 and not 2. Why I chose this background as music notes is that my daughter tried to teach me how to play piano. I always wanted to play an instrument. I'm okay with harmonica, bagpipe, whatever. I can whistle very well, but nobody listens to me. So I decided to start with piano. My daughter said, okay, I'm going to teach you piano. The first thing is to understand those interesting signs here. And then with time, I understood that what is important in music is not really the notes, but the pauses between the notes. This is how we communicate with music, through pauses and through the time between the notes. Some are short, some are big, but actually the whole experience of being in music is through the pauses. So why can't we just apply pauses when we respond and be mindful about that? So what I wanted to share is, when you find yourself in a situation, and actually I'm telling this also to myself, when you find in a situation when you are very reactive, just try to level up, think like an enlightened being, not a lower level one cell organism which is reacting. Try to take the pause, resort to your purpose, to your center, and be conscious, be mindful, listen with the intention to understand. And you will find out that actually in this pause, this is exactly where you live most. Because this is the moment when you are a real being. Everything else is habitual. So why don't you turn that pause also into a habit? Remember who you are and make a choice. That's it for me, guys. Love you.
Thank you. Thank you. Wow. There's a lot to think about.
So much. Yeah.
Yeah. definitely be going back and watching this again, I think.
You think?
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yes.
Robin, are you ready to go? Or are you still having a pause after that one?
It's tough to be third, isn't it?
Tell me about it, Robin. I was the third child. It was tough.
I'm the third child too, Anna.
And it was tough, wasn't it?
It really is. It really is. But yes, I'm going to share my screen as well.
Or at least you have a habit of being a third anyway.
Right, let's make sure that I can actually share the screen. Can you see that? Right, can you all see that? Righty-o. Now, I'm also going to share a little bit of a secret around bad habits, in that I'm a nail biter. And I'm a nail biter still today. And I'm sharing this with you because maybe this is the best forum for us to start talking about it and making it less, less of a thing. And let's just accept the things that we are and try and be better at these things. And I'm going to share with you some 5 thoughts on setting new habits. I'm doing this specifically, and it was very interesting, the words that Naska used right in the beginning. They certainly aren't here to be preachy or patronizing, because for me, this process of 5 thoughts on setting new habits is very, very much a mantra that I have to use to set up a new habit that was entrenched in me before we went into lockdown. And that was a swimming habit. I did every single day without fail. And we went into lockdown, and it's so interesting how we can lose our good habits in a relative short period of time. Because it didn't take me 2 years of lockdown to lose it. When you think about, I was 48 when we went into lockdown. I've been swimming since I was 4. That's a long, long year to actually set up good habits. And it went very, very quickly. And I'm struggling to reestablish this habit. And me too, I am reading very, very extensively James Clear, the Atomic Habits, because I want to become that habitual swimmer, because I feel better when I swim. My mind is better when I swim. But what I've discovered as I've been reading the books and as I've been reading and researching habits is that when we are about to reset our mindset or get ourselves into a new habit or dump the old habits, we have to, in the first step, we have to prepare to be really bad at it. And as we came out of lockdown and the pools were reopened, I went back into the pool with the mindset that I had before we went into lockdown. I went into the pool with this mindset that I was an able, fit swimmer. And quite frankly, you have to be realistic about where you are. And I get in the pool and I would feel really, really, really bad, because I'd gone from knocking off 80 to 100 lengths in a 25-meter pool every single day to struggling to finish 8 or 10 lengths. And I wasn't prepared to be bad. And this is now my new mindset, is that I now have to take that old swimming habit that I had, and I've kind of got to go, Robin, you have to prepare yourself to be not as good as what you were, because you still have, you now have to build up the fitness. You have to, your technique might still be there, but there's so many things that you have to rework and reestablish. and put into your effort about making the habit. And it's like that for anything, really. You know, I remember when I set off on my Camino, the first couple of days were terrible. They were bad. But as you go along and as you start becoming a fay with the walking and how you fit into the day, you become better and better at it. And this is what James Clear speaks about, is that consistency every single day. So yes, in the beginning, your skills are going to be lacking, your fitness might be lacking, you might need to elicit a lot of help around you, and you might have to just prepare to be a little bit bad while you were setting up your new habit. Number 2 is stripping down your big ambitions. Now, I've spoken about it before, in that I have this ambition to swim the English Channel. Now, it's been an ambition of mine for a very, very long time, but it means absolutely nothing if I haven't set up good habits for myself to get me to that point where I'm reaching that big ambition. And it was exactly the same with my pilgrimage. There was an ambition, there was a drive to do this thing, but what you have to do is you have to do that little timeline experience, and you've got to look ahead, and you've got to go, okay, what do I need to do? What do I need to think about? What do I need to action? What do I need to hone? What do I need to become more a fay at to actually get me to that point? You really, really got to strip it down. You can't just go, well, you know, I have this ambition to do X, Y, and Z, and you haven't thought about the processes about how to actually get there. This brings us on to step number 3, or thought number 3, around setting new habits. And this is what James Clear speaks about in his books, is don't focus on the goal. Don't focus on the goal alone. Focus on the systems that get you to the goal. Because ultimately, those systems, and what Anna and Nasco have pointed out as well, those are the systems of making the habits attractive, making them easy, making them part of your identity. Those are the systems that will actually get you to the goal. And even more importantly, and what I've found out just very recently, is that if your systems don't serve you, and if your system doesn't energize you, if your system is something that drains your energy to a point where consistency is a huge, huge step, then you need to go back and reassess the systems. You know, getting to Santiago de Compostela when I was on my pilgrimage, that was the goal, but my systems got me there. And when I started, I failed miserably on the systems, because all I had this end goal, and I just needed to get there. And it, you know, I was just winging it. And it landed up me being injured, and I had to come home, and then I went back to Spain. And that's when I started to focus on the things that really mattered, like having the lightest backpack, resting often, speaking to people and getting their input, you know, doing things like supporting myself with walking poles, those type of systems that help you towards that big end goal. Focusing on our systems, I think, is one of the most important things around how we create our habits. The habits that we have essentially become our systems. And remember, we always have to ask that very, very meaningful and purposeful question is, are these systems serving me or are they not? And then you've got to make adjustments accordingly. This one I love, and that Anna and Nasco said it as well. This is the law of least effort. And James Clear alludes to it in his book as well. And humans prefer to carry out simple tasks that give immediate satisfaction, avoid stress and inconvenience. And these literally are the big wins, or those quick wins that we all like to have. And what I found out was, as I'm now reestablishing this regular habit of swimming, I have to think about it as being something that I'm not going to put too much of an effort into. And if that's going well today, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to be 1% better than what I was yesterday. So if I did 10 lengths yesterday, 1% is 10.1, but tomorrow I'm going to do 11 lengths. And the next day I'm going to do 12 lengths. And the next day I'm going to do 13 lengths. Because if you're thinking about it in smaller chunks and not as well, I'm going to be here for an hour and my program is 100 lengths and I need to do 10 lengths on the board and I need to do 10 lengths with my fins and I need to do all of these things. If you are thinking about them in smaller chunks and in a way that you are telling yourself, well, this is actually not going to be a huge effort. Breaking it down is something that would help a great deal in terms of setting new habits. And I'm going to share a little bit of a challenge that I'm going to give myself as well. And maybe this is the best forum for me to be held accountable to these 5 steps that I'm thinking about today as well. This is of primary importance, is showing up even on the bad days. The times when we are feeling less motivated, the times where we are feeling tired, the times where we are feeling like we just cannot even do it. When we are setting up new habits and when we have committed ourselves to setting up new habits, this is probably the cherry on the top. And there's a wonderful little equation in Atomic Habits, and Naska, I'm sure you've seen it as well. If I have, and he uses maths, and I had to actually get my calculator out because, quite frankly, I'm not very, very good with numbers. But if I had $100 and I have a 50% gain on that $100, that's $150. But if I have a loss of 33%, that 33% off the 150 gets me back to that $100. Now, when you think about that in consistency and devotion and commitment to your new habit, it's far better to avoid the lost days than actually carrying on with your daily activities, because it's only 33% to take you back from where you were. Now, when I actually did the maths on it, because I used my calculator and I did the maths on it, this for me was actually quite profound. And showing up on the bad days is such that you show up, and even if it's a day where you have to do X amount of lengths, or you've got to do X amount of kilometers, or you've got to do X amount of work, if you are doing at least half of it, you are making sure that you are continually gaining and you're continually moving forward, with the focus on keeping 1% of your achievements on a day-to-day basis. And that for me was quite interesting, in that all we have to do is we simply have to show up. And I was reminded of a day while I was on the pilgrimage, and I remember setting off. It was early in the morning, and it was, I think, I don't know, it was a 23-kilometer day or something or other. And I was really tired. And I set off and I started to walk, because what I'd found out on my first attempt was that I had a lot of days where I was resting. And quite frankly, in the beginning, I think I was resting too much, so much so that I wasn't building up that consistency. So when I went back, I knew that I needed to walk a little bit every single day. And on that particular day, although it was a long one planned, I think I walked about 5 or 7 Ks, and then I stopped. And when I think about that, that was probably, you know, I couldn't call it a bad day, but it was probably not one of the best days I ever had. But it still served me very, very well, because I still progressed. And then just to end off, there's this quote that I love from James Clear: and the task of building a good habit is like cultivating a delicate flower one day at a time. And it's so true, in that on a daily basis, if we are focusing on being 1% every day, 1% better every day, if we are consistent and devoted to that particular habit, and it's a habit that's going to serve us very well, then we have to nurture it like we would a delicate flower. Yes, and I think that is all that I have to share. Thank you very much.
That's awesome. That is absolutely awesome. There's a reason you inspire a lot of my writing. So
I appreciate that, Kelly.
yeah, it's very awesome. And with that, I'm gonna have to sign off right away. So we'll see you, and we'll catch you later.
Thanks for joining us. Cheery, bye.
Cheers. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Robin, one of the things I'd love to say on the back of your share there is you have this ability just to cut right through everything and just pick out the points, really short, sharp, clear, concise, dead easy to understand, and boom, there it is. You know, and it's one of the things that I've loved since I met you. You know, we talk, we have so many things in common and all the rest of it, but you say it in such a clear, succinct way. So thank you. That was just, I really, really loved that share.
Just very kind of you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you very, very much.
So I'm going to kind of try and round off now. I normally do death by PowerPoint or Canva or whatever, but I'm not doing that today. So what you're going to get from me is a kind of jumble of ideas that are in probably no particular order, and might give you maybe some sort of understanding of how my brain works, like a plate of spaghetti. I noticed that many of you have gone along the lines of the Atomic Habits from James Clear. I haven't read that book or listened to it. The book I have read around this is BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits. And I've listened to that a fair bit, and I can kind of relate to that quite a lot. So much of what I'm going to share is around that, but also as I have a tendency to do, going off at tangents, because I start to relate things to other things, which relates to other things, and it takes me away off on a tangent. So pull me back if I kind of get out of order. So one of my first thoughts is about, we talk about good and bad habits, but actually that's subjective. That's, you know, what's a good habit to one person may not be a good habit for someone else, just depending on their own perspective, which I quite like. And one of the other things that BJ Fogg says, when we talk about habits, the habits are the pathway to a goal. And quite often what we do is we have these great big cheeky audacious goals, and we're encouraged to have them, because if we don't have them, what you know, what are we all here for? What is our purpose? What, you know, if it's not big and inspiring, what's the point? But actually what BJ Fogg said is, you know, take that go big or go home and throw it in the bin. Because when you're on the starting point of something really big, if you look at the elephant and how you're going to eat it, you won't start. You know, if you look at that channel and how you're going to swim it, if you actually look at it from the end, you know, the end game, you go, oh, wait a minute, that's too big, I can't do that. Or, you know, that's scary, there might be things in there that bite me, you know, all that stuff. So what he talks about is the tiny habits. It's breaking it right back down. Now, this has been mentioned tonight already, but, you know, if you want to be able to do 50 press-ups, start by doing 2 press-ups against a wall. You know, and if doing 2 press-ups against a wall doesn't excite you, or you think, I'll forget, I'll never do that, why? Then when you're brushing your teeth, or when you're waiting in the kettle to boil, or after you've been for a wee, or whatever, do your 2 press-ups against the wall. And over time, that will turn into a habit that will become 3, 5, 10 against the wall, to the point where you say, do you know what, I'm going to try a couple of these on the floor. Bet you I can do them. Which has taken me off on another tangent, because one of the other things he talks about is rewiring your brain. And again, this has been mentioned. It's about celebrating the successes. Because unless we can, and I think, if I'm getting my bits mixed up, Robin, correct me, you know, if we anchor those good feelings to the successes, then what you're doing is you're creating new pathways in your brain. It will create the chemicals that will make you want to do it again and again and again. And the more you do it, the stronger the pathway becomes, and the more likely you are to want to do it. So in terms of these tiny habits, he talks about dead time. How much time in a day do we waste? Do we waste waiting in the water to go hot in the shower before we get into it? Waiting in the kettle boiling? Waiting in, I don't know, the kids getting out the car, coming in the front door? And what tiny things can we do in those moments that could actually have health benefits for us? Standing in one leg. You know, if you get really naffed off waiting in queues, stand in one leg and then change to the other leg, and you're building your core while you're doing it. But acknowledge what you're doing and say, okay, so this thing here is really annoying me, but I'm going to do this, which is giving me a benefit. Then celebrate the fact that you're giving yourself a benefit, and suddenly the world doesn't look quite so grey. And again, going off, you know, talking about the happiness stuff, we're hardwired to survive, not to be happy, right? Your mind doesn't give a Castlemaine 4X whether you're happy or not. You're only there so that big tigers don't eat you. That's what it's there trying to help you do. So if you are in a situation where something's making you unhappy, if you constantly have to meet with someone that makes you unhappy, if you constantly have to do something that's making you unhappy, you can actually attach that to a habit that you look forward to. You know, if you know on a Tuesday you have to meet somebody at work that you really would like to catapult to the other side of the earth, right? Promise yourself at the end of that meeting that you're going to have a coffee, or I don't know, a vanilla what's it latte, or, you know, something, a dirty great big donut, whatever it happens to be, something that you're going to look forward to, a run, a walk with your dog, whatever it is, so that your attitude that you display when you are with that person that naffs you off is going to be different, because you're already starting to look forward to the next thing. You will then behave differently because you're not in a negative headspace, which can change the whole dynamic of that meeting without even realizing it. And that's just one example, but anything like that, you can actually tag on a positive habit to a negative situation to change your perspective. because very often it's not the situation that's negative, it's our perception of the situation, and we react accordingly. So I've gone away off a tangent. So we've talked about considering dead time. What can you do in those 20 seconds, 10 seconds here and there? Listening to positive or enlightening books or whatever. Do them while you're driving, do them while you're walking the dog, do them while you're running, do them when you go to bed, you know, whatever. You know, there's dead time there that you maybe wouldn't consider for learning. Back to anchoring those habits. If you're trying to create a tiny habit, anchor it to something you do all the time. So a way of actually becoming aware of this is to sit down and write a list of things that you do habitually every day. You probably don't even think of. When you get out of bed in the morning, do you put your slippers on before you stand up, or do you just stand up? You probably shuffle into the loo, you know, whatever it is you do habitually. Make a list of all of that. Then make a list of the habits that you would like to start, and then see which of those habits you can attach to those that you already have. So it's a bit like, I think NASCO mentioned stacking. You know, what can I attach to, you know, like if you want to start flossing your teeth and you don't floss your teeth just now, well, after you brush your teeth, floss one tooth. And that's again back to the tiny habits. Make the habits so small that they're so easy to do that you don't even need to think about it. And keep that as your benchmark. Even as you start to get better, keep the benchmark low, because if you miss a day, you're not going to beat yourself up and go, oh, I need to go all the way back to 100 press-ups. No, the benchmark is 1 or 2. Go back to the 2 and see how many you can do. I think Anna said, put your running shoes by the door, because that's the habit, is actually getting across the door. It's often not the thing that you want to do. It's the initial step to take to actually get you started. So one of the things, my daughter, a couple of years ago, bought me a bullet journal, and I created a habit tracker because, well, I won't tell you about that. I'll tell you what happened first, as you already know what will have happened. I wrote a list of habits that I wanted to get into, right? Habits like drinking 8 glasses of water a day. Habits like the length of time I wanted to sleep, the number of times I wanted to walk the dog, the number of miles I wanted to run. And I had a list of about 20 of these habits. And then I had 31 across the top with the idea of ticking every day that I had done these habits. Okay. Now what happened? Surprise, surprise. I couldn't be bothered tracking it. Never mind actually doing the habits. I couldn't keep up the habit of tracking it. And the habits all just fell by the wayside because they were too big. It was 8 glasses of water. It wasn't 1. It was 3 miles a day. It wasn't 1. It was, you know, and it's back to that tiny habits. If you can actually just start that, you can actually go a long way just by getting started. Jim Rohn says that things that are easy to do are also easy not to do. So be mindful, be aware of that. And the other question, when you're about to do something that is a habitual habit that you already have, you can ask yourself, if I did this every day for 5 years, would it serve me? And if the answer's no, then don't do it. If the answer's yes, fill your boots. That's a great way to actually start building those habits. So what else have I talked about? Yeah, so there's another lovely story, and it's about a grandmother talking to her grandson, and he's talking about, you know, positivity and negativity. And if you think about it like 2 wolves, and there's a, you know, a really positive wolf that's really good and, you know, pushing him to do good things, and then there's this angry one that wants to fight all the time and pull him back and stop him. And he's talking about to his grandmother about these wolves fighting and which one's going to win, and she says, whichever one you feed. And that's your habits, you know, whichever habit you feed is the habit that will win. It's the habit that will stay with you. So you can put when you want to create a habit, you can put it through almost like a, what do you call it? A filter, you know, and how much time is it going to take, and do I have that time to create that habit? How much money is it going to take, and do I have that money? Skills, do I have the skills? Do I have the ability? Do I have the motivation? And do I have the desire? Sometimes you might be motivated, but I don't really have the desire, and sometimes the opposite way around. And these are all things to consider. But actually, if you want to create conscious habits, you have to, as Robin said, create the processes and put the strategies in place. Just before I round up with this, and it's not really about habits, but for me, it was really, really powerful. For a habit to become, you know, part of you, you need to make it a must, not a should. Because all that happens is you'll should all of yourself, as they say, and you'll become disappointed in yourself, disillusioned, and it becomes another stick to beat yourself with. So it has to be a must. And he also talks about in order for those big goals that you're building the habits towards, you need to believe that you can do it. Now, that belief might only be in the next habit, that tiny habit. Believe you can do that, and once you've mastered that, get the next habit and master that and believe you can do it, rather than looking at, you know, the elephant, as I said earlier on. If you're struggling, raise your standards. You know, if for whatever reason it's not happening, I need to tell myself this on a daily basis, because I'm the world's worst. I hold my hands up, you know, but sometimes you do, you just need to say, that's not good enough. I need to introduce a bit of discipline here. This needs sorted out, and give yourself a shake. And if you've done that, you've raised your standards and you know you believe it, it's still not working for you, then maybe you need to change your strategy. Maybe the habit that you've picked to get you on that route isn't the right one. Maybe you need to look at a different habit or tweak the habit to make it work. And that's about changing your strategy. And I can, the one big thing that you're always sick of hearing about, but for me was the marathon. I mean, after years, 35 years I've been talking about doing that. And right up to 4 weeks before that, I almost didn't run it till I heard that, change your strategy. And I did. And by changing the strategy, it changed everything. And one afternoon, and I come home that afternoon and said, that's it, it's on, I'm doing it. You know, and it's so powerful. So, you know, these are just some things I wanted to share with you that, you know, it is, a lot of it is about your mindset and about your discipline, but being able to break it down into tiny chunks. So that's my share around habits. So thank you.
Awesome, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
Where were you in terms of your mind and in terms of your heart,
Mm-hmm.
or you made that strategy change?
So I was in that difficult place where I had the want and the desire, but I also had the frustration because a bit of me didn't believe I had the ability. So it was that the wolves were fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and something had to change, and the desire was greater to do it than the pain of not doing it would have been greater than actually, you know, the pain of going through the discipline to make it happen.
The pain of regret versus the pain of discipline.
Yeah. And I think, is this not what habits is all about? We're either working towards pleasure and pulling away from pain. You know, and that's the whole purpose of building habits, I think, isn't it? Because we're either working towards something that we want, or we're trying to get away from something that we don't want. But that for me, it was all about something I'd always wanted to do. I was getting frustrated with myself. I was starting to doubt whether it was going to happen or not. And it was that, what do I need to do here? But there's also, fortuitously, I stuck. I mean, I had that particular book of Tony Robbins on my phone for 4 years, 5 years. Tried to listen to it. It was a bit shouty. It was a bit, I thought, oh, I can't be doing with that. I want peace. And that day I put it on, and he started talking about belief strategies and all those little standards. And I was like, boom, there it is. It was that day, and I'll never forget it. You know, and it's a bit like you, Nasco, you talked about the 7 habits with Stephen Covey. I mean, I read that about, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. And I had forgotten a lot of it. And when you're talking about it tonight and showing all those, I was like, God, I'd forgotten all about that. But you said to me one night, Nasco, I want to tell you a story from this book. And I said, you're going to tell me about the guy in the train. And that's about a paradigm shift. I don't know if you know the book or if you know the story. If you don't, I'm not going to waste it for you. I'm going to let you read it and find it out yourself. It's one of those that's really, really powerful though. So when you read it, you'll know what it is, because it stays with you. You know, and it's funny how certain books just do that. They just appear at the right time and they give you that message that you're looking for, that you don't even know you're looking for.
Yeah. It's incredible how we get to the stage where all of a sudden we're just ready for the message. You know, we've had access to it, but now we're absolutely ready for it.
Yeah, it's amazing.
When the student is ready, the master appears. Exactly.
You know, and I was just actually thinking about my gratitude habit. It is now very much firmly entrenched in what I do. In fact, I've got to that unconscious state where it doesn't matter where I sit down. If I sit down in front of a laptop, it's my laptop, my chair, and I've got that clothes wash in my head, and I'm doing that 3-point thing, and I'm getting all of those emotions going. And it doesn't matter where. I can sit in a coffee shop, I can sit at the desk at the office, I can sit here. It doesn't ever matter. And it's just now this absolute trigger. It just ingrained.
The habit of gratitude has been so powerful for me over the last year and a half. I mean, I've got gratitude stones everywhere, but I go to, this isn't the one that I use, but I've got under my pillow a gratitude stone, and I get it out and I hold it, and I wake up and I'm still holding it in my hand, but it fills me with so much comfort. It's not like, what am I doing? I'm holding a stone. It's like, it makes me smile every time, and I wake up and I think that's so cool, because I'm holding that and thinking of all the things that I'm so grateful for the tiny weeny things to the big things, you know. And incorporating that habit into my life has been life-changing, really. Because you go to bed happy, you wake up happy. I mean, what better thing than that is there?
Yeah.
You know?
That I have to say, from someone that kind of struggles a wee bit with discipline about these kind of things, the gratitude stone is the one thing that's rock solid, pardon the pun, but you know, and it's up by my bed. My white stone is up by my bed, and I fall asleep with it in my hand. Invariably I wake up lying on it, but that's beside the point. I know, no, it's used to my back. But you know, as Anna said, it gives you a smile because you then start working through your day on the good things, you know. It just, yeah. It's really powerful.
Another habit that I've been instilling is I set intentions in the evening and then I set intentions in the morning.
Right.
And it's just something that, like, when I go to bed tonight, it'll be like, you know, tomorrow these are the things I have to do, and it's going to be done effortlessly, and you know, anything that comes my way, I'm going to be able to deal with it. And then when I wake up in the morning, I'm going to go out and grab the day, and I won't accept anything less than, you know, just having a wonderful day. And 9 times out of 10 it works.
It works. Brilliant. There's actually I was listening to that that book again just to kind of refresh my memory on it, and one of the things is the first thing in the morning is 7 words, and it's today is going to be, pardon me, awesome, or today's going to be fantastic, or today's going to be whatever. And just by the sheer act of saying that, you know, it can change your mindset of how you go out into the day. I tried it yesterday, it didn't work, but that's beside the point.
It's one of those habits you got to stack.
Heavily.
You got to stack those things.
No, yesterday was just one of those days, to be fair. It was a bit out of the norm. But yeah, so I think it's a really good way. It's a bit like the gratitude steps, you know, with each step say thank you, you know, and it kind of compounds how you start your day. So just before I kind of wrap up the call, would anybody like to either make a suggestion of a habit for anybody else that's watching, or, you know, for ourselves to hold ourselves accountable for a new habit, a tiny habit? Oh, Nat, we'll go for it.
You go first, Nesco.
Yeah, I already shared with you, you know, the habit that I'm trying to master, and I think is very useful for everyone, is to learn to take a pause.
Mm-hmm.
When circumstances affect us and you need to react, just be mindfully conscious to have the power to think and pause and then respond.
Yeah,
Mine would be say something, one thing, only one, because we're keeping it tiny, one thing nice to yourself every day about yourself. You know, something that, you know, that you're struggling with, even, and stand there and say that you are beautiful, you are smart, I am, in that sense, you know, and believe it, feel it. I think if you can start that habit, your life will change a bit.
Mm-hmm. I love that. I love that, Anna. Beautiful.
Yeah, and you know, and I think that just from our own experience, if there's been good habits that we've had prior to lockdown, don't have them now, and those good habits served us prior to lockdown, and we want to reinstill them, then know that we have it within our power to reinstill those things and stack on that habit that we had before and become even better at that particular habit.
Yeah, I think for me it would be getting back to writing the 3 things I'm grateful for in the morning. I think because it started off as 3 and then it became 10, then it became 20, and then it became pages, you know, because once you actually get into that mindset, it just flows, you know. And it made me, when I was doing it, it made me stop and take time in the morning. Whereas, you know, that habit has gone. I'm very aware, you know, of how grateful I am for what's going on around about me, but I don't take the time to stop and actually journal about it anymore. which then means that you're just running about like crazy in the morning, because we've gone back to jobs, we're going back to doing things we did before lockdown. We got that break, we got a chance to see what life could be like. And actually what's happening is the tides are starting to pull us back again, and I don't want to be pulled back again, I have to say. So
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everybody, for your contributions tonight. I think there's a shed load in there to think about and to take forward. And so thank you very much. And for anyone that's watching either on Facebook or watching on the replay or on the recording on YouTube or wherever. Thank you very much for joining and for listening. And I hope you get lots out of it. And I'd really love to hear your.
Thank you. And enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. And you. Take care, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you.